Part 3, Testing, Assessing and Certifying. 27. Testing, Assessing and Certifying. A fire door must have documented evidence of performance. This can be in the form of a single fire test report, several fire test reports, an assessment issued by an organization accredited by UCAS to issue fire door assessments, third-party product conformity certification. Fire test reports only cover the exact door leaf, frame and hardware combination that was tested. No amendments are allowed from the standard. If changes are required, the door will need revalidating. 28. Fire door testing. Some fire doors need to be tested from both sides to determine its performance. This is because you don't know from which side a fire will occur. The test requires two doors tests in tandem. In order to satisfy the requirements of the building regulations, fire doors are currently tested as a complete door assembly to BS 476-22, 1987 or BSN 1634-1. Note the tests are not identical. BSN 1634-1 is the more difficult to pass. The level of protection provided by the door is measured by determining the time taken for a fire to breach the integrity, classification E, of the door assembly, i.e. allowing the passage of flames and/or hot gases. Premature failure of any element of the door assembly is likely to result in test failure. 29. Door configuration and action. A door assembly with single-swing fire test evidence cannot be installed as a double-swing door assembly unless covered by evidence of performance. Fire and smoke seals and the door assembly are totally dependent upon each other if the required performance is to be achieved. Door assemblies installation should always be verified with the tested construction, against such information as single leaf single acting size of leaf, double leaf double acting make/size of seal. 30. Smoke control tests. Smoke control doors must have been successfully tested to BS 476-31.1 or N 1634-3, 2004. The UK requirement currently relates only to cold, ambient, temperature smoke, and the classification or designation is defined as SAR, ambient smoke control. It is of note that a fire test report is not a certificate, it's just what happened in a test under laboratory conditions on that day. 31. Assessments. An assessment, which should only be carried out by UCAS accredited organizations, typically takes into account evidence from several fire test reports to assess the scope of a fire door covering, size range, door leaf and frame construction, glazing and hardware range and combinations. Test reports and assessments are lengthy and include detailed information on what was tested and performance, including the fire integrity and insulation. Extracts of test reports and assessments should be treated with caution and can be misleading and should be interpreted by someone with skills and knowledge to competently do so. 32. Definitions. Global Fire Resistance Assessment, GFRA, is a comprehensive document produced by a UCAS or equivalent approved organization using established methodology to determine the limits of manufacture and design and extend the scope of application in order to satisfy fire resistance performance based on various fire tests carried out. This is typically to BS 476-22 or BSN 1634-1. Once the primary tests have been completed successfully, the test house will write a global fire risk assessment report that will bring together the test data into a single document which will explain the full scope of the product. Global assessments can bring together the results of multiple tests and provide a scope based upon all of the evidence. Assessments cover various aspects of design, including the use of overpanels and how to install them, acceptable increases in leaf dimensions, height and width, acceptable changes in door set configurations, single leaf, double leaf, single acting, double acting, the use of and installation of glazing and the option to use various glass types, door frame variations, ironmongery components, fire, smoke and acoustic control requirements. Ideally, global fire risk assessments, GFRA, should only be used as part of a third-party certified scheme such as Q-Mark Fire Door Manufacturer or Certifier. This ensures that the manufacturing process is regularly monitored and audited, and the manufacturer is required to undertake a fire test periodically to meet the global assessment. Primary test evidence, a report based on a physical fire test of a manufacturer's door set and is carried out by an independent third-party accredited test house. 33. Certification. Certification is a process also involving UCAS accredited bodies such as BWF Certifier, BRE/LPCB, IFC and BM Trotter, all of whom provide independent third-party inspection and auditing, intended to ensure that the product or installation consistently complies with universally recognized quality and compliance standards. Fire doors that are covered by a certification scheme will have a label or other mark that identify the name of the certification scheme, the name of the manufacturer, installer, the fire rating of the door, a traceable serial number. 34. X over BM Trotter. One third-party accreditation scheme for fire doors and fire doorsets is the BM Trotter Q Mark scheme. This is where fire doors can be identified through a colored plug which is usually fixed on the hinge side of the door. There may be a number of plugs on the one door. Different outer colored plugs determine the fire door's rating FD 3060 etc., whilst the inner colored fir tree determines how the door left the factory. So, a blue outer plug with an orange fir tree tells us that the fire door is an FD60 and left with factory-fitted glazing. One plug will always have a Q with a number across the fir tree which determines the door manufacturer, but it is necessary to contact BM Trotter to obtain that information. Where there is need to replace one leaf in a pair of fire doors, it is necessary to go back to the original manufacturer and buy an identical door to the damaged leaf, making the pair of fire doors a tested pair once again. 35. BWF Certifier Scheme. Those in the BWF Certifier Scheme have labels fitted to the top edge of the door. It is the most common way of identifying fire doors through the merchant system. The certifier scheme requires a tamper-proof label fixed onto the head of each fire door clearly detailing that it is an FD 3060 etc. It also details the door manufacturer and their telephone number. Each label also has an individual certifier certificate number EC 999 and a unique door number for the door purchased, e.g. A123456. The scheme allows you to check that the fire door installed test detail, e.g. CF 999, and allows you to replace an identical fire door if one becomes severely damaged. 99% of the doors sold through the National Merchant System are in the BWF Certifier Scheme. 36. BRE and IFC labels. BRE and IFC labels also provide fire certification information. 37. Certificates of conformity. Companies installing, inspecting, maintaining and repairing through certification schemes operated by UCAS accredited organizations or equivalent will issue third-party certificates of conformity confirming a certificated process has been followed. 38. Heritage doors. Heritage buildings are just like any other building and must comply with the regulatory reform, Fire Safety, Order 2005 and Building Regulations approved document. They present unique challenges for safeguarding people and any valuable assets, and conducted by experts familiar with will inform optimal fire door placement and maintenance strategies. Often independent third-party accreditation of heritage doors will be required. 39. Door sets. Door sets comprise a door where all the components including leaf or leaves, frame, glazing, seals and hardware are typically supplied, fire-tested and certified together, complete or partly factory-assembled. Installing complete door sets can be expensive, but they are the safest way of taking fire doors into buildings as they arrive as a successfully fire-tested unit and are supplied complete with all of the components. If additional intumescent material is needed under the hinge blades or around the European lock case, then it may be supplied and fitted. 40. Door assemblies. Door assemblies are where various components are brought together from a number of sources and partly or totally fitted on site. This way of creating a fire door is the biggest cause of possible non-conformance. Each of the components is brought together from separate locations and manufacturers, and there is a need to ensure components have the necessary fire test evidence to support them working together. 41. Sourcing doors. To ensure that everything is compatible and compliant, sourcing a door assembly requires compilation of certification evidence or alternative means of evidence of performance for each component. A compiled paperwork trail to evidence compatibility of the components and that there is no risk of integrity failure of the fire door should form an individual door's golden thread of information. Certificates will need to be collated for each component, including its ironmongery, including the door, its frame, seals, hinges, closers, locks, lever, handle, panic hardware, glass and glazing seal, etc. There is need to always verify the compatibility of the seals with the tested door assembly, as the performance characteristics can vary tremendously from one seal manufacturer to another. Seals can be fitted after the door leaf and frame have been manufactured and installed, which can unwittingly allow the substitution of a different seal from the one which was originally tested with the door leaf. The legal requirement is, however, quite clear, in that no substitution is allowed without either a retest or an assessment of the door and its assembled components. Compliance to test evidence is the best precaution to take, for it is only by testing the door leaf to its destruction that we know that the fire door assembly will perform as it was engineered and designed. Intumescent seals are not the commodity products and cannot be interchanged on a whim. There is need to specify, enforce and require that doors are installed to the door manufacturer's test evidence, or independent third-party accreditation. 42. Door leaves. To minimize compliance and installation problems, it is an industry recommendation that new fire doors are purchased as third-party certified doorsets that have been tested and factory assembled as a complete unit. It is equally important for site installation to be by those with proven competence to do so, as a poorly installed fire door set will render the manufacturer's certification invalid. Unsurprisingly, third-party certified installation is an increasingly popular option to ensure compliance. The majority of doors in this country are now manufactured under a certification scheme, but the vast majority of fire doors are still not installed under a scheme. The issues associated with this will be explored in some detail later.